God lures the phallus out of himself. Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy, Carl Jung's Black Books, Part 75, in which I will pick up right where Frater BT, I assume, picked up, or where he left off, rather, in Part 74. Oh yeah, that was a BT Carl Jung episode with the tarot cards and shit. Oh, thank God we don't have to do any of that. There's not even any, there's just literally the beverage and the incense when I come on here. Anybody remember this shirt? This was right around the time, there was when Chicken Philosophy started, there was that, it was a little bit and then I seem to remember this as being the point where it goes, and then it started to pick up later on. Never mind. So I'm hailing back. This is a callback. Good mood, dude. And it's a little reminder to me if I start to veer off into some grumpiness. I don't foresee any of that. I'm in the mood to read Carl Jung today. I was watching YouTube first thing in the morning, which you should never do. You remember back? Nobody remembers that. No, I'm sure people remember. Back when you'd go to a coffee house and you'd see people talking, there'd be groups of people talking, there'd be tables, there'd be one person sitting alone, and then they'd strike up a conversation with a stranger, and then before you knew it, they had made a new friend or whatever. There were times where I would go sit down outside Higley's, this coffee house, I don't know. I call them all coffee houses. If coffee is the main thing they sell, I call it a coffee house. Unless it's Starbucks, then you call it Starbucks. Anyway, this was before Starbucks, literally closed down all the other, 99% of the privately owned coffee houses. Anyway, I seem to remember sitting at a table outside and talking to somebody who, the thing with coffee houses is, slowly, you'd have one friend, Chris. By you, I mean me, of course. And he had friends. And then you'd meet his friends and his friends' friends. And then if you hang out there long enough, you start to kind of be open to the possibility that if one of your friends' friends is there, and none of their friends are there, and you're there, and none of your friends are there, you end up sitting at a table having a one-on-one conversation with this person who's basically a stranger. Everybody is a friend of 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 a friend, right? 6 degrees of separation. That's been basically scientifically proven. Speaking of science and shit, the thing is, well, then you'd end up going somewhere and having a crazy night, and then the next day you'd talk to Chris, and he'd be like, "Oh, don't hang out with that friend. They're a coke fiend." And you'd be like, "Yeah, and now so am I." Shit. No, that's an exaggeration. Anyway, what? Yeah, no, I don't know. It's just, I only saw the very beginning of it, so maybe it was, but based on the title and the guy's face and the production quality, some combination of elements, kind of when things make reference to things that aren't necessarily very personal to me, but things that are positioned in such a way that I feel an association with some of the things that they're talking about, and they're talking in a particular way, and I recognize the way, and I kind of know where they're coming from, but I kind of hate where they're coming from. You know what I mean? So this guy, where he's coming from is that typical, okay, everybody knows that relative to, let's say, Europe, Americans, 50% of Americans believe in angels, 50% of Americans believe in astrology. I don't know if these numbers are true. I'm just painting a picture, hyperbolic picture. Meanwhile, in Europe, 20% believe in anything, right? And 80% believe in nothing. And so this is often upheld by intellectuals, American intellectuals, who are disappointed in America, or anyone else who's, someone in Europe who wants to talk about America. Yeah, it's more likely an American, self-hating Americans, right? Not that I'm familiar with that demo. Everything's a demo and a brand now. So yeah, no, the point I was making about the coffee houses before. See, there's two things. I thought I had nothing to say, but I have two things to say. Some of us remember those days, but that will never. If you go to a coffee house and sit down, and the only person there is your friend's friend's friend, I guarantee you'll be at separate tables on your fucking phones, and that's been the way it is for 15 years approximately, right? Before that, there was like, oh, that one rich guy, look at him with his iPhone. And back in the 90s, yeah, there'd be one studious person like, oh, I just come here to work. They've got their laptop and they're sitting in the coffee house on their laptop, and everybody's like, look at this fucking nerd. And then that kind of became normalized through the aughts, and then the cyber cafe phenomenon. And I remember, anyway, there's too many, not worth it to go down those storylines. So yeah, so that became a cliche where people in 2011 would say, does anybody remember the 90s, back when people would go to a coffee house and talk or hang out with people or write poetry? That was a big one, especially in the sort of coffee houses I was too young to frequent. I would just sort of like peek in and go, oh my God, look at these cool kids. Back when I was 14, I'd be like, oh, they're writing poetry. And then I'd go write poetry sitting under a tree. What's my point? Fucked if I know. Oh yeah. Nowadays, it seems like we're entering another one of those big shifts, or we've crossed through. It didn't happen all at once, but I think now some of the older Gen Alphas in the room, right? They're like two, right? Can be like, does anybody remember a time when you could go on social media and see real images that were either a photograph or like some kind of artistic rendering, whether digital or, a picture of something physical? And that was all you would see. And now it's more than half AI generated. Ugh. All right. See, that didn't really go anywhere. The other one is a little more substance in it, I think. So this fucking dude, and I don't know this guy, and I'm not even like making enough reference to like pinpoint who it is, unless it's more popular than I realized. The point is, he was talking about how astrology was snuck into American schools. I'm like, what? So I started watching it, and he starts, like, on a very basic surface level, introducing you to Carl Jung. Once upon a time there was Sigmund Freud, and he, of course, was the father of psychiatry, and he had this, like, rogue fucking weirdo student, and he was like, yeah, but it's all connected, man. We've all got this under the surface, this collective unconscious, and there's symbols and archetypes, and blah, 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 blah. And this is how these woo-woo minded, deluded people who think that this bullshit is real, like astrology, whatever. And so they used Jungian psychology to package it and wrap it and then sneak it in so that it can continue to exist. Yeah, well, I remember that. You remember when Carl Jung was talking to Gilgamesh and he was like, I can't bring you into the West unless you admit you're a fantasy, and then I can put you in my pocket and we can just walk to the West, and then we can give you medicine, and then you can live out the rest of your days as a fantasy. And Gilgamesh was like, well, if it's that or die, I guess, okay, I admit I'm a fantasy. Great! And thus, the seeds were planted, or maybe they were already germinating. Here's a cup. This has coffee in it, and it's very small. And here, I'm pretty sure these are like Arabic, passages from the Quran or something that are stylized and put on here. So, in memory of well, we're still doing it. Meccan Revelations. We'll be doing it for a long time, probably longer than the black books, because the black books, it looks like there's a lot, but really it's just to see how there's this gray and these white. Those white pages are the typed translations of the handwritten journal, so you get to actually see his handwriting. That was useful once for me. Anyway, so fucking yeah. So like there's a lot of things. One is that, yeah, there are a lot of different kinds of people who relate to a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, and there's these real excited, like, dudes. They're excited about their energy drinks and going to the gym and chicks, and they just hate the fact that every time they sit down to have a Tinder first date with some random chick they slid right on, who slid right on them, that, you know, within a few minutes they come to realize this person doesn't spit and vomit every time the idea of astrology comes up. They're like, oh, astrology, yeah, I'm a Gemini. When's your birthday? And they're like, fuck this bitch, it's over, I'm out of here. I'm quoting a hypothetical asshole, by the way. I don't talk that way. So this type of dude, right, is far away from, for example, just to take a random example, me when I was 12, where all there was in my reality were things that have been explained by science, things that can probably be explained by science, and things that maybe are operating on a level that isn't really accessible very well to science unless you kind of do it indirectly through psychiatry or something like that. And then, you know, but as far as like the mortality or immortality of the self, I kind of figured, like the Vedantan thing, like it's all one, and it's all one great self, one great being dividing into many, and then eventually it'll be one again, and that sometimes it's a universe and sometimes it's not, sometimes there's no thing and sometimes there's lots of stuff, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on, and it's all just kind of down to like some kind of mathematical precision. And I plummeted into a deep existential depression, kind of feeling like there wasn't anything interesting in any universe at all, you know? And for me, when I started playing around with Kabbalah, when I read a little bit and I was like, oh, hey, you know, like it was a lot of it was kind of, there was a little bit of suspension of disbelief involved, you know? And really delving into, all right, yeah, this is cool. You know what? Let's do this. I'm going to learn Hebrew. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dal, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het, Yod, Kaf. And then, you know, after a while that got a little boring. Plus there seemed to be a little bit of overlap between like Kabbalah in Europe and witchcraft, and I got into Wicca, and I'm like, yeah, can you feel it? I can feel it. Yeah, the goddess energy, all these things exist in the collective unconscious, as we know from Carl Jung. Thank you, Jung, right? And so yes, I invoke Pan and Gaia, and I know it's his great grandmother, but they're gonna do the great rite in my ritual, the autumnal equinox of 1994 or whatever that was, that I wrote for a group of 5 or 6 people as my graduation from beginning Wicca. The point is that things like astrology and angels and gods and tarot cards and all this kind of stuff, for me, served as a very pleasant relief and distraction, much the way that fiction does, much the way probably Marvel movies does for the dude bro that was talking about fucking Jung aloud. They used Jung to let astrology into, man, Americans are so not as existentially atheistic and suicidal as, well, they're suicidal for other reasons, obviously. But the point is, what's the point? There is no point. It's a bunch of half-formed thoughts. Seeing the first, like, 15 seconds of this video stirred up a bunch of stuff and then I turned it off. I'm like, nah. But then the stuff kept stirring, and I don't think there's no like, and therefore, like, this isn't a well-formed like thought or essay or anything. It's just kind of a reaction I had to it that ended up with me, saying, you know what, it's time for Gwydion to read black books on chicken philosophy, and I was thinking of toying with the idea of at least taking the day off today, since I did, 2 videos yesterday. If you didn't see them, they're the same. Actually, the chicken philosophy one has a bit more in it, but the Buddhist books one has better quality, like, experience of what you're looking at. It was zen. Anyway, we'll put those at the end. I'll do an end screen. You can pick the chicken philosophy version of Mind Here Now as Buddha, or you can watch the Buddhist books version of the same thing, but it's called Zen Buddhism Part 8. So yeah, no, I don't know. Like, is it? Yeah, like, I don't feel the same way I did when I was 12. Obviously, when you're 12, there's a lot of hormones rushing in, and I think a lot of that, the negative experience I was having, was definitely compounded by the fact that my body was screaming, have sexual intercourse as soon as possible, and my intellect was looking at the world that I lived in, the society I lived in, and said, well, given my social awkwardness and the fact that I'm 12, that's going to be minimum 5 years. And so that I think is the core of a lot of people's depression, hence the idea of the incel being a crazy person who runs around killing people and then themselves. That's not every incel or every self-identifying person is an incel. And certainly it was started by a Canadian woman who felt that she was, forced to be involuntarily celibate, and then it was co-opted, as many things are, like the idea of the red pill was, by assholes, the same assholes in this case. So that's our beverage for today. All right. I think we're done with that. I think so. This is Dutch Rose. You remember there was a box. I used it for art. Oh, whatever. I don't know what I did with it, but it smells... It's this intense rosy smell that's like just a little bit different from regular rose smell, if that makes any sense. So it's a very specific, and it's very strong, and a lot of smoke pours out of this when I light it, and I don't know. I just felt like going with some Dutch Rose and some coffee in a tiny Arabic teacup or whatever. Oh, see. All right, and that's our preamble for today, I think. Did I reach any? I don't know if I felt like I wanted to say something about that whole phenomenon, but yeah, I don't know. I'll probably come back to it, and I've probably talked about it on various levels before. But for me, I think it's okay. And I will admit that there's a spectrum. There are various spectrums. For one thing, for example, I live in India. If you didn't know, if you're new, and here, in a traditional, conservative, fascist family. I'm not saying India's fascist. I'm not saying it's not. I'm staying in a safe zone where I do not talk about the government. You know what I mean? I'm just saying that there are certain types of people. Not all of them are fascists. Some of them are, and they're traditional, and they're old timey folks here. But here, that doesn't mean Christian and astrology hating. And not so coincidentally in alignment with their grandson, who's an atheist and also astrology hating, thinks he's doing it in the name of science when he's still doing it in the name of the Lord. Ha! Self-reflect. Anyway, I'm not talking to you, obviously. I'm talking to people who would never watch this silly program. What? Where did we go? Yeah, so these traditional folks here will say, okay, well, you're getting married. Well, is it the right caste? And it's like... Okay, well, that's fucked. And it's like, okay, all right, correct caste, you're at the right age, never mind anything about that. First, let's talk to the pundit. And you're like, talk to the talking head on the news? No, That is an English word that came from the Hindi word pundit, which means the priest, the holy person, the Brahmin. So you go down to the temple and you say, hey, these kids want to get married. And he says, with an accent that I'm not going to do, when are their birthdays? When are their birthdays? And you said, give it to the priest. And the priest sits down and he says, come back tomorrow. And then you come back tomorrow and he's like, okay. And he might say, if these kids marry, he's going to die in 5 years, and then she's going to get a debilitating disease, and then the child that they have is going to have one arm, and it's going to be terrible, and people will be cursing your family name for generations to come. And so then the parents are like, okay, thanks for letting us know. We forbid this marriage. And they're like, but we've been talking ever since you told us we were going to get married. We've been hanging out a little bit and talking on the phone, and we kind of like each other. We kind of want to get married. And I was like, well, too bad. I forbid this, right? Or the priest might say, hey, well, here's the thing. Because of their, natal charts and their couples, what was that called when you do couples? You put the natal chart on top of the other person's natal chart, and then you try to find, okay, if they get married on this specific day, then it will be less of a problem because of the astrological influences on the wedding day will help to balance out the natal charts of the bride and groom, but there'll still be problems. But the good news is the problems aren't that severe. All you have to do is chant this one thing 500,000 times. Or pay me to do it for you. And they go, well, okay, we'll pay you to do it for you. And then they all live happily ever after. So that's different, I'd say. I would say that there are very valid criticisms of astrology in that context, right? Then looking at America, though, where there are various subcultures and various people into various things. There's goths and bronies, and we've talked about this before, right? And then there are people who like astrology. And there are people who study it, and there are people who get really into it, and then there's people who get so far into it that they kind of start to live their lives by it, and then then maybe in extreme cases it crosses over into a point where they're trying to govern other people's lives by it. Can you imagine how extreme, how bizarre, how weird that would be? And that would definitely be crossing a line into a territory where it's the influence of astrology, not the astrological influence, is a play on words, would cross over into problematic territory, which is the standard, normal, traditional way of approaching astrology in India, but not so much in America. Very rarely goes there. I think that a person should be free to get so nerdy about Dune or the Bible or whatever that they can live their lives by it and be perfectly happy. And then once they start trying to govern other people's lives by it, that's where, a big heavy hand, your freedom ends right where interfering with the freedom of your neighbor begins, right? This is basic. I mean, I think it is, isn't it? It should be. In my humble opinion. What am I talking about? I don't know. If people want to get into astrology, they can get into astrology. Once it gets to the point where they're living in fear because of astrology, that's when I would personally say, okay, they need a little bit of a dose of reality, so that they can come out and go, this is all really here. It's infinitely more complex than this base 12 system that I've been living my life by, right? And then then they can have the freedom to move through life, or you know what I mean? I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I'm making cartoon examples, but I'm definitely at the very least saying that playing with things should be fine. I mean, I think that these dude bros energy drink, this stupid girl on Tinder thinks astrology is real. These types of guys that are like in some kind of position of some kind of power in some kind of subculture, and the only thing that can really be said, is positive about it is it's better than the norm 200, 300 years ago, and it's better than the norm that's actually in physical power in America right now. So it's like they can look at the Christian nationalist fascists that are in power and say, they need to stop it and be more like me and not believe in anything and think people are stupid for believing in things like angels or the Bible or astrology or crystals or whatever, or yoga mats. So I looked at some of the comments and all these people and their crystals and their yoga mats, and I was like, fuck these people, you know? Like, seriously, if you're gonna be an atheist, be an atheist. Actually look in the mirror. Not just run around trying to smash religions and smash non-atheistic ideas with a hammer. That's like real base level stupid shit. Take it as your path. Confront it. Ask yourself the questions. Ask yourself the deep questions, and do not cower into that fucking like, oh, well, I don't want to think about that. That's morbid. Oh, yeah, well, no, think about it. What are you? What is self? What is consciousness? Well, science has, I don't even know how to phrase the question in a way that we could make an experiment to determine what could in the future maybe be a scientifically provable, theory about the nature of self and consciousness, right? Like, you can see how the brain works, you can see how the body works, you can see how evolution works, you can see how the Big Bang works, maybe sort of, you can see how dust swirling around lights up into a star, and how little things start happening on the surface of a rock orbiting the star. It all makes sense right up until you say, yeah, but how is it that it's you? And most often with these fuckers, they'll say they'll act like they don't understand the question. They'll just like, what? What are you talking about? That doesn't even make sense. You're talking philosophy. I'm talking science, and it's like, fuck these people. No, just fuck these people. But I mean, I relate with them right up until the point that they're being assholes about it. Where personally I enjoy, I enjoy the experience of delving into Ibn Arabi, Carl Jung, even in its own twisted way, Martin Luther, or Nag Hammadi, and maybe I'm a bit irreverent. I don't know. This isn't about me. This is about some other fuckers, right? Narcissism of small differences, right? Okay. That's enough preamble. Definitely enough preamble. And I don't know. Now that I've settled that out loud, I can hear myself say it, and if there's any conclusive thought or any way to tie it together or any better way of putting it, then who knows? Maybe I'll write a poem about it or talk about it later. So thank you for allowing me to just spout off these half-formed thoughts, and I totally get why you would not want to do whatever it is these dude bros think you're supposed to be doing. What? Like, be a completely rational, well-informed, scientific, ephemerally based person so that you can go sit in a cubicle and stare at a screen and answer the phone and try to get a better 401k than in your previous place of enslavement, that, and then go to a therapist and be like, yeah, I'm so depressed because, well, obviously, who wouldn't be? And when this is your life and your perspective and your point of view, and lack of philosophy, shrugging off philosophy as a concept, and opting instead for science and Marvel movies, yes, and Star Wars, but only the old ones before they were woke, right? He says ironically. I mean, when they're shitty, but Andor fucking tomorrow. I have to wait till tomorrow, because even though it's the 6th today, and the third group of 3 comes out on the 6th, it comes out at 6 p.m. Pacific, which for me is 6:30 in the morning on the 7th. So, anyway. All right. I'll go ahead and get to it then. So, what did Carl Jung get up to on January the 14th of 1916? I don't know. Let's shed a little light on it, shall we? Funny. Okay. What, soul? You're still here? Didn't you find your place, or didn't you find the words which belong to me? How do you honor your earthly soul? Remember, he's decided to pretend that he's the soul of his soul. I mean, it's schizophrenic already, like talking to your soul in the second person, but we'll let him play his games. We let him play his games. If we want the right to play our games, so we should let him play his games, even though his games end up becoming the foundation for a lot of our games. Anyway, recall what I bore and suffered for you, how I wasted myself, how I laid before you and struggled, how I gave my heart's blood from full bowls to you. I don't think you can blame anyone else for that. You were the one who's like, you want my blood? Hey, vampire lady. Hey, could you talk to me? You need blood? Here's some blood. Here, take all my blood. Take all the blood I have. You know, like, that was on you, dude. That's like, you can't be like, look how I suffered. Oh, look how I suffered for you. I did that for you. It's your fault I'm hurting. Right? It's not good. Okay, I have an obligation to lay on you. I'm going to pretend I misunderstood that. He has an obligation to lay down, to lie down, lay on. I have an obligation. He's going to lay the obligation like you lay some eggs, because you don't lay down, you lie down. So you'd have to misunderstand the use of the word lay, first of all. He's not talking about getting laid with his soul. I think it's implied. It's behind the scenes. Never mind. Maybe that's when he becomes the mana persona. Where are we? What? I have an obligation to lay on you. You should learn the cult of your earthly soul. Oh, God. Oh, God. Is that like Carl talking to his eye? Like, I'm going to beat you up. Not even in a fun way. I'm just going to be an asshole about it, right? I saw the land that is promised to man. The land where milk and honey flows. I think you misunderstood the scripture there. That wasn't for you. That was for a specific group of people. And spoilers. It's a problematic promises. The problematic promise of God. Never mind. What? Yes. I saw the splendor of the sun on that land. I saw the green forests, the golden vineyards, and the villages of man. I saw the towering mountains with hanging fields of eternal snow. I saw the fruitlessness and fortune of the earth. None but I saw the fortune of man. You, O soul, force mortal men to labor and suffer for your immortal salvation. I demand that you also do this for the earthly fortune of humankind. Pay heed. I speak in both my name and in the name of mankind. Since our power and glory are yours, thine is the kingdom and our promised land. So bring it about, employing your abundance. I will remain silent. Yes, you will lose me. It depends on you. You can bring about what mortals are forbidden to create. I stand waiting, beseeching. Torment yourself so that you come to find it. Where is your immortal salvation if you fail in your duty to bring salvation to man? Pay heed, so you will be working for me, the silent and suffering one. Eternal fate presides over the gods also, not only over mortals. Yeah. Yeah. All right. January 15th, 1916. What is it about the old furnace that lay there so deserted and seldom used any more for smelting? My soul, I beseech you, speak. Carl. Carl is not good at giving the silent treatment to his soul. I'm never going to speak again until you fix the world. Soul, why is the furnace here? Silly boy. Quote, throw in the old and broken, the unused and the ruined shall be renewed for fresh use. End quote. But what is it? Quote, it is the custom of the ancients, the good tradition of the ancestors, observed since days of old. It is to be adapted for new use. It is daily exercise, a daily retrieval of the battered and used into the furniture in order to serve, smelted and renewed to serve new purposes. You must melt down all your feeling, which has been worn out by the day, through inward retrieval into the mounting heat, in order to purge rust and breakage in the fire's heat, so you can renew the work of the day with restored tools. The ancestors prayed and practiced the holy ceremonies. End quotes. This is kind of what I'm talking about here. Like, these things, like astrology and religion and hocus pocus, yes, there may have been a time where people were ignorant that the sun went around the earth, or the other way around, right? And they may have thought that all this stuff in the Bible was more real and true than the observable world around them. Yeah, that was a time back then. The solution to that isn't necessarily, in my opinion, and Carl's, that we need to completely erase, because it's sad, if nothing else, to just be like, well, humans, they used to be stupid. Well, what are some examples of their stupidity? This great and vast and complex multitude of ideas and philosophies and points of view and religions and traditions and rituals and all that. Oh, so what should we do with that? Just throw it away. Just fucking throw it in the trash. Maybe it can be recycled. Maybe it can be repurposed. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, sometimes it turns, into a bad form. And so as a result of that, some people will say, so we should destroy all of it so that we can prevent it from turning into a bad form sometimes. But I don't think that that's a good enough reason to try to wipe something off the face of the earth. First of all, you won't be able to. There's a whole lot of people who are dedicated to making sure that the people who think that religion should be wiped off the face of the earth fail. Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. It's a lazy group thing. That's the thing, is these fucking dudes, these fucking chuds, these fucking women women and their astrology. You ever notice that every chick that's into yoga has severe emotional issues? I was somebody's Uber driver once, and I had to be like, well, I don't know, fucking wish I had a gun, it's hard to be in a position of service because you inevitably run into people that you want to strangle. I mean, if you're the sort of person that occasionally wants to strangle people. I mean, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. People you want to, like, at least look at and go, the fuck is wrong with you? You know, or at least look at and go, ugh. But if you're in a position of service and, you know, here's your Starbucks, here's your contracts, here's your destination. And then they say some shit like that and you look at them and go, ugh. Then they give you 2 stars and then you get fired by Uber, the robot, for dropping below 4.6. What's my point? My point is, I feel better, even though I haven't said anything, even though I don't think I've said anything useful for anyone else. Maybe, I don't know. But, yeah, I feel better. I feel like I got it off my chest, and now I can experience the day, and it's more crisp and clear quality. Here's a little video of what it is like, what I'm looking at right now. Yeah, that's outside. All right. Yeah, I mean, you know, they act like it's an obvious conclusion and an obvious set of views and standards and values through which to relate with the world, when the reality is that it's just as much of a sheeple groupthink as any other sheeple groupthink. You know what I mean? Like these guys that are like, you know, get together and have a beer and be like, chicks and their astrology, right? Yeah, chicks and their astrology. You're in a church. This is your religion. This is your chant. This is your version of stupid shit. Now, should I be so open-minded that in addition to integrating and taking seriously aspects of Carl Jung and Ibn Arabi and Martin Luther, that I can also allow for them to exist? No. But should I? Probably. Yeah. I think coming from realigning, recalibrating to more of a Buddhist idea, have no preferences, have no aversion. I mean, easier fucking said than done, right? You know? But when something's causing you a continuous feeling of suffering or a continuous feeling of unhappiness, or taking away from your ability to experience the joy of the present moment unnecessarily, then it might be a good time to look at it and utilize perhaps one of these ideas. Oh, I need to stop averting, being averse to this familiar thing. No preference, no aversion. Does that mean you have a preference for no preference and no aversion, and an aversion to preference and aversion? Ha! Checkmate! Yeah, don't do that either. That's what I'd say. Okay. It is the custom of the ancients, blah, blah, blah. You must melt down all your fear. That's what the soul said. Teach me the ceremony. This is Carl talking back to his soul, who's suddenly getting along with. Weird. Teach me the ceremony. Teach me its solemnity, use, and meaning, so I can accomplish what is necessary. Quote, above all, dedicate your prayers to me, so I can convey it to the distant God. So that's said every intercessor ever, intermediary, Prayer has magical power and compels the gods, the capital G. Don't you feel the influence of the gods and the daemons? They also pray to you, and by that they compel you. Thus do likewise to them. I will lead through intercession. end quote. Leading through intercession since 325 AD. Yeah, this is talking about the institution of the church, the Romanization. Never mind. Teach me how to invoke you. You do it all the time, Carl. But yeah, let's see what she says. Quote, it is wordless. Is he talking to his soul? He said soul. What is it about? My soul, I beseech you, speak. Yeah, he's talking to the soul, the same one he was just arguing with. Was that literally the day before? Yes, it was literally the day before. Okay. Quote, it is wordless. It is a few words. It is the contrary. On the contrary, it is deed. There should be few words. There should be no words. It's a painting I did on acid. I started it on acid, but most of it I did in the days that followed. No words. Anyway, sorry. It must be deed, prostration, on a colorful prayer mat that signifies the world. End quote. All right. Are you lying? Quote, how can you ask such a question? What good is this ceremony for me? Actually, you need it for yourself. End quote. Is that true? Even the prayer mat? Is the outer thing necessary? Astute observation, Carl. I would say no. But it helps. Might as well have it if you can. Don't become dependent on it, like astrology, right? Let's see what his soul says. Quote, you are ignorant of the power of matter, just as you know nothing, Jon Snow, of human power, not even your own. Matter is the counterpole to God. God lures the phallus out of himself. Let me read that again. The soul is talking, so we'll do it in the soul's voice. Yes, he lures matter. Wait, what? No. God lures the phallus out of himself. Yes, he lures matter out of the devilish void, which is God himself. You know that the power of the phallus is great. We were just talking about that. When you're 12 and you become the victim of your own phallus, it sucks. I seriously considered chopping it off. I was like, seriously, like, Mom, I'm gonna cut it off. Actually, honestly, I didn't tell her that I was having those thoughts until I had decided not to. But there was a time when I was like just gonna go ahead and do it and be like, hey, I need to go to the hospital. No, don't sew it back on. I'll just throw it in the garbage disposal to prevent that. Yeah, I need to live without this. But I mean, I think she convinced me that, oh, well, testosterone isn't just produced in the testes. It's also produced in glands in the brain. So you'll still have those urges, but you won't be able to act on them. And I was like, oh, fuck. There's no way out. You know. It sucks to be 12 or an incel. Just don't kill anyone. It's no excuse for you to act like. And stop being an asshole. Just self-reflect. Unplug. Get out of those news groups. Out of those news groups. That dates me. Okay, continuing. Sorry. Phallus. Yes. Did you ever doubt it? Then you know that the power of matter is even greater than the phallus. Damn! Oh yeah, the razor blade is Trump's phallus. If you were doing paper razor blade phallus, then the razor blade would be both paper and the phallus, right? Yes, obviously. I was being dramatic and I lost my... Here we go. Right. The heavenly world, nope. 1:15. Here we go. A little spoiler for next time. The earth is more powerful than the phallus. He is the transient sun. She is the age-old mother. The hardest, most imperishable matter is the best. It needs to be built into this matter. Then there's a line, no end quote, not even a Sonu quote. Sonu, are you paying attention? And then it says, oh, no, okay, she's still talking. There's a line and she's still talking. Never mind. Sorry, Sonu. Sorry, you're doing really well. The hardest stone is good for the greatest idea. To penetrate deeper into matter endows thought with great powers. Always erect it in matter. Bracket parentheses, end quote, end bracket parentheses. Nice catch, Sonu. And Rick?
I f***ed the planet!
Yeah, that's not exactly what he's saying, but it fit. I mean, well, his fit, because he's Rick. But, yeah, okay. So we did a lot of talking today, not as much reading. I'm fine with that. And as for how you feel about it, now you know how you feel about it. See what I did there? I invoked your awareness of your own feeling about it. With a pause. Not with words, but with actions. Alright. Well, cool. We went around in circles, got nowhere. But we explored some spaces and places, some in-between spaces. I think that religion and spirituality and metaphysics should be preserved to be playthings for the existentially depressed atheists going through puberty. Non-ironically, that's what I think. And other things. I mean, that's just the one specific example that I have personal experience of. Other types of people in other situations can have varying degrees of relationships with them. The doorbell rang, that's me. It's time for me to wrap up. Until next time.